Yes, Erica, let us continue. Hello everyone, my name is Michael SK, and welcome back to Umineko When They Cry, episode 5, where we are in the final showdown of this episode. Even so, we've only gone through, like, maybe 1.5 of the Twilights, so barely getting into any of the murders in this rendition of the story. But it's time to break it down. It's time to see whether or not this was all indeed done by a human, if we can prove that, or we just have to go with, all right, well, we lose. This was all done by witches and magic. Again, we can't prove anything. And it's kind of weird because, you know, what we're trying right now, at least on Beatrice's side, she's trying to kind of prove that none of the... Well, actually, no. What is she trying to do? She's trying to prove that a human actually committed a murder, or the murders of the first Twilight. Even so, she's trying to argue overall that this was all her. This was all done by witches, magic, and what have you. It's a little backwards, but it's the only way that things can work, because she has to protect Natsuhi. So we're still going through the first Twilight here.
24時から午前1時までのたった1時間の話。もはや難しいことではありません。まず24時の時点。この時点で2階廊下に夏日、クラウス、源氏がおり、それ以外の全員が1階食堂におりました。これはすでに我が主によって赤き真実で示されています。そうよ。24時の時点で屋敷の2階廊下には夏日とクラウス、源氏がいた。残りは全員1階の食堂。そしてご存知の通り、謎のノックがあって、片翼の紋章の手紙が現れた。そしてそれをめぐって、午前1時まで延々と議論が続いたわ。私がそれを赤き真実で語るわ。食堂の全員は、午前1時まで誰一人食堂を退出していない。
Okay, so that's all the people that were in the dining hall, and that should clear up everybody that was in there, including 2 of the servants. But when it comes to Natsuhi, Kraus, and Genji, those are different cases there. Excluding Natsuhi, Kraus, and Genji, none of the people in the mansion left the mansion before 1 a.m. Left the mansion or left the dining room? But okay, yep, that dashes that right there. Okay. Well, here we go. We have Genji, Kraus, and Natsuhi left basically on the list for Twilight number 1. Since the possible times for the crime had been limited to between midnight and 1 a.m., the adults in the family conference who were confirmed not to have left the mansion between midnight and 1 a.m. all had proven alibis.
それをどうやって証明するのか。エリカはゲストハウス。誰かが食堂の扉にお得意の封印でもして証明したというのか。納得のいく証拠も証明もないぞ。赤き真実はただ真実であり、証拠も証明も議論の余地も必要ない。
Yeah, as we, have come to learn all of that through our battles against Beato herself.
あんたが作ったルールよ。
Yeah, there you go. This overbearing red truth hadn't only given alibis to the adults in the dining hall, it also gave alibis to Shannon and Kanon, who had come to serve tea, and even guaranteed that they never left the dining hall. In other words, the only ones who didn't have proven alibis were these 3, Natsuhi, Kraus, and Genji. No, there were only 2 left. If Kraus and Genji had their alibis proven, it proves that no one but Natsuhi could have been the culprit.
では、次に源氏についてです。
I'm actually really excited for these 3 because they are kind of the outliers in a way. Let's see what we can come up with here.
彼は犠牲者ですが、いとこ部屋での犯行に及んだ後、自らも殺された可能性も否定できません。そして何より24時に2階廊下にいましたが、その後、夏日の電話の取り次ぎのため使用人室に戻り孤立。
Is it not possible that Genji in the mansion committed the crime?
ということは源氏にも犯行は可能なはず。
Uh-oh.
赤で語るわ。
Uh-oh, no, 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 no.
源氏は電話の取り次ぎを終えた後、そのまままっすぐ控え室に戻っている。証拠も証明も封印もアリバイもなく、ただ冷酷に真実をね。
Okay, so that means that there was indeed a call. Like, there 100% was a call of some sort that Natsuhi went back to her room to go and answer. So, a call was transferred.
そして午前1時、親族会議は再び小休止となり、ローザがゲストハウスへ戻ります。この時、本当に強力に感謝します。後宮エヴァさん、ご起立を。
Uh-oh. Come to
エリ
life.
カちゃんだけじゃないのよ。私もきっと今夜何かが起こると思っていたわ。
Oh.
彼女こそは私に封印を教えてくれた方。そして私と共に疑わしい人物のアリバイを確かめるために協力してくださいました。
私は午前1時の小休止の時、源氏さんの控え室に行き、エリカちゃんと同じ封印をしたの。つまりこれが破られていなかったなら、午前1時から翌朝までこの部屋は誰も出入りできなかったことになる。
The murder of Genji is also restricted to the interval of midnight and 1 a.m.
続けてカノンさん、熊沢さん、ご起立を。
Why is Kanon having to rise, along with Kumasawa? I actually was just suspecting Kumasawa here because, based on how everything is set up, and Erika being distracted for an hour because she was in the library, you know, chatting away to her heart's content with Dr. Nanjo, it does leave a very, very rare possibility, a chance, despite it being extremely rare and very unlikely because of Kumasawa being who she is, of slipping on out and then going up through the lobby and committing murders. I don't think that's very likely to have happened here based on who she is. But it could have happened. Kanun rose expressionlessly, and Kumasawa got to her feet timidly.
お二人は朝、起きてくるのが遅い源氏さんを起こしに行きましたね。そしてその時、扉に封印がされているのに気づき、それを破いて扉を開きましたね。
Oh yeah, that was there.
はい、何かのいたずらだろうと思いました。
Right. And you know what? There was some like a label on it, you know? Like a burn Castile label of some sort, which may have just been like a silly reference of some sort, but... Or alcohol, you know, it could have been anything.
あの時はそんなことは深く気にしませんでした。
感想は聞いてません。事実だけを述べるように封印を破って入室したのですね。
はい。
赤き真実でエヴァとカノンと熊沢の今の証言が真実であることを保証するわ。エヴァは午前1時に源氏の控え室に封印をし、それは朝の事件発覚時にカノンと熊沢に破られた。
Okay, but that was at 1 a.m.
面倒だからさらに付け加えるわ。午前1時の小休止で最初に食堂を出たのはローザとエヴァよ。エヴァが戻るまで食堂の人間は全員その場にとどまっていた。エヴァはローザを見送った後、控え室へ行き封印を行った。無論その際に室内には一切立ち入っていないわ。
You know, it's kind of strange. So, 1 a.m. is the significant time for multiple reasons. It's when they had their break, and when they began to, you know, well, if they had their break, 100%, Rosa decided to call it for the night and go back to the guest house. But she was still alive, obviously. And that was confirmed that she was still very much alive by there being witnesses that saw her get back to the guest house and go on upstairs. So, if the crime had to have happened between midnight and 1 a.m., how is she still alive? She had to have been killed somehow once Erika, Nanjo, and Goda all moved back into the lounge and was able to monitor people coming in and out. And all other ways of getting into the guest house were sealed. How is it that Rosa died? What about Maria? Maria was in the same room as Rosa. I'm sure Rosa went to go get Maria from the cousin's room and go on to bed. Were they really dead before 1 a.m.? I feel like we're not being accurate with our times here. Something's amiss. And there was a comment on the previous episode or previous video stating that there are some gaps, there are some holes here in the Red Truth, and gave an example of it. I knew there were, I just couldn't really figure it out. But, you know, using the Kumasawa example, that is a technical one. It's just really dumb and very unlikely. Rosa could have committed the crime, you know, killed the, I don't know about Genji, but she could have killed George, she could have killed Jessica, her own daughter, and then herself? But have these all been ruled out as murders or suicides? You know, what do we got going on there? I feel like that's very unlikely too, but based on the information we have, it could have happened. Doubtful, but it could have. There are holes here, basically. We got to figure them out. Something's wrong. As Erika swaggered around the cathedral, she arrogantly touted her scientific knowledge. She had thorough knowledge of all the chemicals in Kinzo's study and had used them to conduct a scientific investigation, which had now been acknowledged and made into a red truth by Bernkastel. She didn't explain the details, but she had obtained results that were convincing even without the red truth. Collecting fingerprints with aluminum powder, component analysis of the mud under someone's shoe, and various chemical reactions from the clinging rainwater. Erika just walked into someone else's study several times, and used several chemicals however she pleased, all without asking the family's permission. She doesn't need permission, she's the detective. However, no one could fault her for this. The pieces couldn't hinder any action the detective might take for the investigation. That's the power of the detective's authority. Yeah, for real.
Genji の控室へ至り、犯行を行うのが可能なのもまた、24時から午前1時までであることが証明されたわ。そしてさらに、エリカの調査によって、Genjiにもいとこ部屋へ至るのが不可能であることが証明されたわ。
It had already been made clear in red that after transferring the phone call to Natsuhi, Genji had gone straight back to the waiting room. And because of Erika's scientific investigation, further red had been added saying, Genji never left the mansion after midnight. Because of this, it's been made clear that Genji couldn't have reached the guest house, much less the cousin room. Alright, so he's cleared. Genji has an alibi. Still kind of hard to figure out what happened to him because I guess you can argue that it's always been like this. You've got people so separated here that, you know, how could the same person do all these killings the way that they did? Especially here, where we have basically two different areas. Yeah, this is kind of a tough one here, isn't it? I mean, can't Natsuhi state, you know, that she doesn't have an alibi, but through the story that she stayed in her room? Can't some red be utilized to show that?
それ以外に
Probably not
全員
gonna
のアリバイ
happen.
が証明されちゃったじゃない。
Because that's probably not what happened. Natsuhi's mouth flapped open and shut like a suffocating goldfish. And that's an accurate analogy. Natsuhi's mind was blank and spinning out of control, and she felt as though she really would suffocate.
後ろ宮夏日、最後にチャンスをあげるが、すべての犯行はあなたの夫の仕業だと自ら告白なさい。
バカな、私が夫に濡れ衣を着せるような女に見えますか。
ベアと夏日は拒否したわ。そしてあなたにも同じチャンスを分かっているでしょ。それともまさかクラウスが行方不明であるのをいいことに悪魔の証明でごまかしきれるつもりじゃないわよね。
Is it not possible that Kraus and the mansion committed the crime? I mean, let's consider a couple of things here. Obviously, the three of them were up on the second floor, and then, you know, midnight struck, and then they all eventually dispersed. Genji went to go transfer that phone call to Natsuhi. Natsuhi went to go get it in her room. Kraus eventually rejoined everybody. We saw that. But what did he do beforehand? Beato realized that they were rapidly approaching the end of this battle. Normally, Beato should have been able to argue against these alibis of Erika's in several ways using the Blue Truth. However, all those alibis had been accepted by Brunkastil and Lambda Delta as Red Truth, and Beato no longer had any room to argue.
まるであの魔女どもがそうなるように曲解してるみてえじゃないか。
そうですね。ゲームマスターのラムダデルタ教が納得したなら、最後に残った真実に基づかれ、その最後の真実が本当の真実とどれほどかけ離れていようとも。
クラウスおじさんが犯人のわけない。おじさんは何者かに監禁されてるんだぞ。
Allegedly.
そうと夏日おばさんを電話でうまく騙した可能性も否定できないな。
バトラ君は夏日とクラウスを疑っていますか。
それは
エリカの真実は卑劣な構築ですが正当です。魔女と結託しているとはいえ赤き真実で認められています。つまり嘘だけで構築した偽の真実では断じてありません。つまりエリカの真実でも筋が通るのです。夏日やクラウスが犯人という真実も全くありえなくはありません。それが虚構であろうとも筋は通る真実と同じ価値を持った虚構なのです。その2つの真実のどちらを信じるか、それはバトラ君自身が自ら決めることです。
Oh, that's rough.
いや
That is rough.
俺は夏日おばさんとクラウスおじさんを信じるぜ。
I don't think you should necessarily do that either.
確かに金でトラブルがあるのは知ってる。だがそれでも俺はおばさんたちが犯人だと信じたくない。いや信じられない。
これだけ赤で着実に追い詰められたこの盤面上でどうやったら夏日を逃がせますか。
わからねえ。だが絶対に屈したくない。夏日おばさんは卑劣な罠にはめられただけだ。エリカの推理はまさにそれに踊らされたものだから、エリカは意図してかせずしてか本当の犯人の片棒を担いでるんだ。エリカが夏日おばさんを犯人だと告発し、そしてこの場にいる誰もがそうだと信じても、ならばこそ俺だけは夏日おばさんを信じたい。
If everyone believes in her, will that become the truth? If everyone accepts a lie, will that become the truth? Must an honest person be dragged up to the guillotine, all alone and taunted by liars?
俺は嫌だぜ。誰も夏日おばさんを信じないなら、むしろ本当の真実は全員が納得したら決まるものじゃない。徹底的に双方の可能性を検討して その上で至るもんなんだ。だからこの法廷は嘘っぱちだ。この法廷は夏日おばさんを犯人だとでっち上げるためにしか存在しない。
Oh yeah, definitely.
ベアとは夏日を必死に弁護していますよ。
違う。ベアトがしているのは抗弁、言い訳でしかない。この法廷では相手の主張に抗うだけじゃ戦えないんだ。だからかつての俺は一方的にベアトにやり込められていたんだ。エリカに勝つのに必要なのは奴の推理の穴を探すことじゃない。奴とは異なる別の真実を見つけ出し、それをあのゲームの支配者エリカの真実より正しいと認めさせることなんだ。
ベルンカステル教の示した赤き真実に抵触せずに夏日が犯人でない真実を紡ぎ出せますか？
わからない。だが俺が夏日おばさんが犯人だと信じない限り絶対に別の真実がある。
Like I said, there's still some holes here. I truly believe that we can poke around the red truths that have been thrown down on the table here.
仮に事件の犯人は魔女ということになってもいい。正しくない真実によって夏日おばさんに濡れ衣を着せられるくらいなら。
夏日が犯人であるとこれほどの赤き真実を突きつけられてもあなたは信じないのですね。
ああ、物事ってのは常に信じるやつと信じないやつがいるべきなんだ。たとえいくら証拠が積み重ねられようとも誰かが潔白を信じなきゃならない。世の中には証拠じゃ示せない真実なんていくらでもあるはずなんだ。みんながそうだと言うからきっとそうなんだなんてことを。
Damn, if only the Battler of episode 1 would hear what Battler now in episode 5 is saying. How can you be sure that there's nothing on the backside of the moon if you've never seen it? Is there some reason that you have to believe it until you see the back of the moon with your own eyes? You can deny neither the possibility that nothing's there at all, nor the possibility that there's a thriving culture of space bunnies. You should never assume something is the truth until you can actually check it. This court is a malicious thing, trying to force a single interpretation on a truth that cannot be checked. I believe there was a civilization on the backside of the moon, but that was in... yeah, what the fuck? But that was in elementary school, and I was made fun of and laughed at. So I thought it was embarrassing to think that a civilization lived on the moon, and I threw away that belief. I had been told by a book my mom read me that rabbits lived on the backside of the moon, so I believed that for a long time. But when everyone said it was wrong, I abandoned that truth without even trying to check. Even without evidence, I abandoned the truth I believed in. And now everyone is starting to believe that Aunt Natsuhi is the culprit, even though no decisive evidence has been shown. Even without evidence, Erika's words sound reasonable, so they're probably the truth. Is that why you're throwing away your belief that Aunt Natsuhi is innocent despite a lack of proof?
誰も信じないなら俺が信じる。本当の真実は否定と肯定の2つの目で同時に見た時にしか浮かび上がらないと。奴らが夏日おばさんが犯人だといくら信じさせようとも俺は犯人じゃないと信じる。それを捨てない。
わかりました。ではあなたに私から一つだけ
I love hints.
真実を授けましょ
Let's go, Virgilia. You freaky sometimes, but I'm with it. Let's go.
う。私が真の意味で戦う意志を持ったあなたに送るたった一つの力です。
力？
有限の魔女ワルギリアの名において、いえ先代の魔女ベアトリーチェとしてあなたに赤き真実を託します。
Alright, what is it?
後宮夏日は犯人ではない。
Damn, she's just outright saying it. Okay, well, hey, my prediction was right.
司法取引クラウスが犯人だと認めたならエリカは夏日に対する追及を中断。以後は所在不明のクラウスが犯人ということで追及を。
どうするベアト。 このままじゃ夏日やばいわよ。司法取引を受ける？後宮家の名誉とやらを放棄するなら今回はドローにしてあげようっていうベルンの甘い配慮よ。
Kraus is currently missing, and it's unknown whether he's alive or dead. Like Kinzo, he's no different than a cat in a box that has disappeared into the mists of the island. A cat inside a box is unfixed, and no interpretation of it can be denied. It is the root of endless interpretations, the true source of the endless witch's power. In other words, no matter how much Bernkastel claims that Kraus is the culprit, she can't make that the sole truth. In other words, the Kraus culprit theory and the witch theory can be in almost perfect balance. It would mean making the game a draw. Bernkastel was tempting her. This was cajolery. Cajolery? I've never heard of that word before. Offering her a second chance if she abandons the honor of the family she swore to protect and consents to a fragment that stomps all over that honor. There's no room for false confidence. For Beato to lose is to die. In this game, she should always choose a draw unless she has an overwhelming advantage.
夫は犯人呼ばわりなどさせません。夫は後宮家次期当主。
No.
後宮家の栄光を受け継ぐ唯一の人間です。その人間に犯罪者の汚名を着せるなど断じて許しません。良いのか夏日、クラウスを疑ることを放棄するならもうそなたしか、そなた以外の全員のアリバイの証明、すなわちヘンペルのカラス、何の証拠もなくそなたを犯人だと断定できてしまう。私しか残らなければ何だというのですか。私は後ろ宮夏日、逃げも隠れもしない。私は潔白です。そして心に片翼のわしを刻む高潔なる当主代行です。私を罵りたければ罵りなさい。あざけりたければあざけりなさい。誰にも虚実で私の名誉を傷つけることなどできはしないのです。
With a dignified voice, Natsuhi stated her case openly before the witches above her. However, this response of hers might have been exactly what Bernkastel had intended.
夏日は取引を拒否。ベアトは分かってるわね。夏日が特定された瞬間にラムダは判決を下すわよ。その瞬間に魔女幻想は否定され、あなたはつゆと消える。夏日のくだらない意地に地獄の底まで付き合うつもり。
Come on, Battler.
リーチェ、
Come on, Battler, where you at?
あんたはよく戦ったわ。ここが潮時よ。夏日を説得してなんとかギリギリの妥協策を。
ラムダデルタ教もベルンカステル教も真の敵はお嬢様ではなく退屈そのものです。このゲームをまだ繰り返し遊びたいはず。お嬢様が譲歩するところを見せれば喜んでそれを受け入れ、次のゲームに仕切り直すはずです。
次のゲームに仕切り直され、このゲームの夏日を、このかけらの夏日を。そんなの気にしてる場合じゃないでしょ。夏日なんて所詮駒よ。このゲームで取り除かれても次のゲームではまた登場するわ。
しかしお嬢様はそういうわけには参りませんと。今回のゲームでベルンカステル教の手の内は分かったはずです。それを生かし次回のゲームで勝利を目指す方が現実的です。ここはベルンカステル教の取引に乗るのが唯一無二の上策かと。
くだらないプライドは捨てなさい。カスパロフもディープブルーも無敗じゃないわ。最後に勝率で勝者を決めるんでしょ。一つの勝負、一つの人生、一つの駒に魔女が執着したら死ぬわよ。すまぬな。
Not gonna happen.
そういうわけにはいかなくてな。
Nope.
誰もが違うと言っても自分だけは信じる男の強さと、それを捨てなければならなかった男の悔しさ。わらわは夏日を見捨てぬ。なぜか誰もが夏日を疑うのなら 誰かが夏日を信じねばならぬからだ。真実とは疑う者と信じる者の狭間にこそ見つけ出せるからだ。わらわは見捨てぬぞ。誰もが夏日を犯人と信じるなら、それでもわらわは魔女が犯人であると主張する。それが主張できるなら、わらわの存在価値などそれまでよ。負けられねえんだよ、真実ってのはさ。自分が疑って捨てた時に消え去るんだよ。
それがベアとの返事？
ああ、当然拒否よ。後宮クラウスは犯人にあらず。
Okay, there's the claim. I really do wonder what what ended up happening to him here. Oh, well, I guess we're not going to worry about his alibi whatsoever. We're going to outright say that he is not the culprit.
バカだ。もう取り返しはつかないわよ。愚か者の短期にふさわしい報いを受けなさい。奇跡の魔女ベルンカステルの名において赤き真実を語るわ。後宮クラウスは犯人ではない。
Okay, so now that we have declared that, and we've declared that Natsuhi is also not the culprit with Virgilia's red truth, that means somebody else that we have assumed is already cleared through an alibi, or through some other red text in some sort of way through time, or location, or whatever. That means that they have to be the culprit if we want to assume that a human actually did this. Unless this story is only told in a way that no human could have actually done this, and it's just all some sort of ruse. But I don't believe that. I do believe that there is a human at the very end that did all of this.
そしてとっくに殺されてるわ。
He was killed.
あんたに電話で声を聞かせた直後にね。
そんな。
Bernkastel's cruel and ruthless red blade gouged Natsuhi. It was totally merciless. Natsuhi had been crushed with uncertainty, not knowing whether Kraus was alive or dead, but she had still been capable of believing that he was alive. And now that hope, that expectation had been crushed without any chance for a miracle. She had thrown herself into this trap out of concern for her husband's safety. She had now lost her daughter and husband, and everything that she has gained since marrying into the Ushiromiya family. No, even after all of this, one thing still remains. If her husband has been lost, then right now she is the last person who can protect the honor of the Ushiromiya family. She still couldn't let it end here. Even wrapped up in so much sadness, Natsuhi would do all she could to protect that honor. With this final bit of strength. Okay, wait. Before we continue onward, I'm trying to remember. Did Kraus actually go back and chat with everybody else once he did, right? He had to have, because he noticed the ring, right? I'm trying to remember how this all went down that night after midnight. And once the three of them split up like they did. Otherwise, what happened? When did Natsuhi hear Kraus's voice over the phone? Was it in the morning? Was it in the evening? I can't remember. I think it might have been in the morning. So when Natsuhi woke up, she got the phone call, right? Is that how it went down? I can't remember. And now my memory is going to fail me from making a proper prediction here. But I'm trying to figure out the course of events here that could also clear up Natsuhi, but it's not really working. I feel like Genji, his alibi isn't as clear as we think it is either. He could have had something to do with things here. Why wouldn't Kraus go to maybe where Genji is and then die with him somehow, you know? And there's got to be a way that somebody got up to the second floor and did their killings, especially after Rosa got back to the guest house. it could not have been Natsuhi. She just wasn't anywhere near these people.
残りの食堂の人間は全員1時まで食堂を出ていないことは赤き真実で確定してる。つまりもう夏日以外全員のアリバイは証明されてる。
Excluding Natsuhi, everyone in the mansion has an alibi. There's our last point. Oh, there we go. That means that we go back to the point of Natsuhi was the only one without an alibi. Oh boy. But if we can somehow prove her innocence here,
見事だったわエリカ・ベルンカステル。
create a contradiction of some sort. She doesn't need an alibi. We just need a contradiction with the logic that has been thrown our way. Then that claim can't be used.
あなたたちは後宮夏日以外に犯行が不可能であることを証明しきったわ。主文から読み上げようかしら。被告後宮夏日は1986年先に就寝すると偽り実質へ戻るふりをして午前1時までの1時間の間にジョージ、ジェシカ、マリア、ローザ、ゲンジの5人を次々殺害したわ。
主文追加。状況証拠からクラウスの殺害も追加を。
そうね。クラウスを殺せるのだってこの状況じゃ夏日以外に考えられないわ。
Okay, but what happened to Genji?
主文を訂正するわ。午前1時までの1時間の間にクラウス、ジョージ、ジェシカ、マリア、ローザ、ゲンジの6人を次々殺害したわ。
Okay, so Genji was killed before that seal was put on the door then?
殺害可能時間はいずれも24時からの1時間の間だけ。その1時間の間にアリバイを持たない犯行の可能な人物は後宮夏日だけだった。以後ゲームは被告を真犯人として扱い進行。また事件が人間の犯行で完全に証明されたため無限の魔女ベアトリーチェ当幻想法廷はあんたの存在をここに否定することを宣言するわ。抗弁の機会があるけど夏日のアリバイを証明できる？もしくは夏日以外が犯人の可能性を示せる？それさえできれば夏日は黒ギリギリのグレー止まり。あんたの存在否定は今回は保留されるけど。
If Natsuhi has an alibi, Beato would have shown it long ago. In fact, wasn't the whole point of that trap to make her lose her alibi?
アリバイの証明などなくともわらわは夏日の無実を信じるぞ。そなたらが偽りの真実をどう決めつけようとな、わらわこそが真犯人である。夏日は無実である。たとえ証拠がなくとも。
真相はロッケン島の夜の主黄金のベアトリーチェだけが知っています。私は後宮夏日夫なき今私が後宮家の当主です。
I'm tired of this shit, man. I'm tired of this shit. You are the head of nothing. Stop saying who you are, too.
我が心いかなる恥ずかしめにもくじけることがありません。
Sorry, I just had to get that little rant out of the way, but we're good now.
それはなぜかお父様が私に心に片翼のわしの紋章を刻むことをお許しくださったからです。私の心臓に刻まれた紋章と名誉をあなたの証拠とアリバイとやらはどう否定できますか？できません。私の心に刻まれた後宮家の紋章は不滅なのです。
Now that Natsuhi and Beatrice had practically been placed on the guillotine, they cried out with all the strength of their determination. However, that did nothing but bring a cold smile to Lambda Delta's face. Erica had constructed a truth that Lambda Delta could accept, and no one could construct a more convincing truth to deny Erica's. In that case, the most convincing truth would swallow up everything else and become the one and only truth. Even if it happened to be different from the real truth, the truth of those in the past is swallowed up by the truth of those in the future. This can happen even for a mixture of truth and lies, as long as everyone acknowledge it as true.
よく吠えること。私は魔女が火あぶりになるときは命乞いを泣きわめく子が一番好きよ。あんたみたいな虚勢を張るのが一番興ざめなの。だからその虚勢を打ち砕く赤き真実を私からの最後の贈り物としてあげるの。
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
何ですか。よせ。ベルンカステル教、もはやそなたの望んだ真実に上書きされるであろうが、その真実と夏日の真実は相入れるはず。汚さないでやってくれ、頼む。
夏日。
Uh-oh.
金蔵があんたの心に片翼のわしを刻むことをいつ許したっての？
Yeah, I mean, that was always just something that she made up. You know, I think going back even to episode 1.
あんたの妄想の中の金蔵の言葉でしょうが、それは本当の金蔵はね、生涯ただの一度もあんたを心の底から信頼したこともないし、あんたに紋章を許そうと思ったこともただの一度もないわ。
Damn. Right to her face, too. When that heartless announcement was made, Kinzo stood up.
夏希、耳を貸すでない。そなたの心に刻まれた紋章は誰にも汚されぬ。
Yeah, Kinzo wouldn't say any of this.
そなただけのものだ。Ushiromiya家の最後の当主としての誇りを永劫に忘れるな。夏希！
やかましいわ。夏日のゲロカス妄想。
Oh, goodbye, Kinzo.
消せぬぞ、我が魂は。夏希が心に紋章を刻み続ける限りな。
この嘘つき幻想が。本当の金蔵はそんなことを言わない。
That's what I'm saying, actually. Goddamn.
消えなさい。夏日によって美化された。夏日にとって都合のいい夏日の中の妄想の金蔵。
A bright red flash of lightning smashed Kinzo over and over again as he screamed. Okay, we get it, game. And then he crumpled like a doll and sat back down in his chair as though nothing had happened. The fierce emotion had left Kinzo's face. He had truly become like a wax model, and so he would never again share kind words with Natsuhi. That's right. The true Kinzo never once trusted Natsuhi during his entire life. The true Kinzo never once considered allowing Natsuhi to bear the one-winged eagle. Because of course, Kinzo had already vanished before the start of the game. Yeah, even whatever we saw in episode 1, whenever she like went into his study or whatever, and he was like, yeah, you know what? I'm entrusting this responsibility to you, or whatever the fuck he said all those videos ago. Like, that never happened. That never happened at all. The Kinzo that appears in this game is nothing more than Natsuhi's delusion. Every part of this Kinzo who believed in Natsuhi and entrusted her with protecting the family honor was a phantom created by Natsuhi. I mean, we all knew this. God damn, even that in the red truth.
Ushiromiya金蔵の信頼を生涯得られなかった真実を今こそ正視しなさい。
夏日、泣くな。そなたは金蔵に後ろ宮家を託されたのであろう。
No, he didn't. Not only did he not entrust her with that, he never even said hello or met her gaze even once, goddamn. That's rough. To even go that far. You know, maybe that's why she's always got those headaches. She's always just, you know, stuck there in her mind and her daydreams and such. Now I'm sounding pretty fucked up. Natsuhi's cry was a mixture of sadness and many other emotions, and it echoed throughout the cathedral. Natsuhi could no longer stop her tears. Some last faint element that had cheered her up until today that had allowed her to endure as an Ushiromiya, as the wife to the head's representative, and as the final family head, had been torn to bits. Natsuhi no longer had anything left. Natsuhi could no longer allow herself to even call herself an Ushiromiya. Goddamn. Even I'm struggling. Those difficult days, those painful days. Those days where she still gave everything she could for the family that she'd married into despite it all. The very few happy days among these. All these flitted through her mind, one after another, and disappeared. All of those once beautiful memories were then crushed by Bernkastel's red truth, smashed to bits and scattered, plunged deep into her hands, and smeared red with mournful blood. It was the red of sadness and truth.
以上です。ただ事件がそこに存在するだけで、フルドエリカはこの程度の推理が可能です。いかがでしょうか、皆さん。
Lambda Delta clapped. Then a bit later, Bernkastel also clapped, looking pleased. The expressionless wax figure-like audience followed suit, and the unshakable verdict was welcomed with a great applause. And so the truth of this tale was decided. Or was it? Or was it? Come on, Battler. Come on. Come on. Anytime now. Please. What the fuck is going on now? Right now, no humans exist on this island except for those in this parlor. And with one exception, it has been shown that none of them have committed murder. And the culprit is among these people.
Oi, oi, となると決定的じゃねえか。
魔女が犯人で魔法で殺人を犯したわけでない限り。あんたなの？あんたがジョージを、主人を殺したの？どうしてよ？どうして？
私は殺していません。私は。
In a panic, and with a voice that was far from calm, in a manner that was, to put it coldly, unsightly, Aunt Natsuhi denied the suspicion placed upon her. However, there was no longer any way around it. She stood up, brushed back her long hair, pointed at Aunt Natsuhi, and said it one more time.
あなたが犯人です。後宮夏日さん。
Red-faced and tear-streaked, Ava walked up to Natsuhi and grabbed her by the collar. Then wordlessly, she slapped Natsuhi's cheek. Natsuhi, who had never been slapped in her life, was shocked by the taste of iron, which she was feeling for the first time. But she's never had like a tooth issue of any kind? It turned into a scuffle between Ava and Natsuhi. Battler immediately tried to stop them, but Ava planted a sharp knee into Battler's gut as he doubled over, and he doubled over. Sobbing, Ava kicked Natsuhi, who had fallen to the ground over and over. Battler tried once more to cut in and stop them, but he was brushed aside. And after that, no one tried to stop them. Repeating her son and husband's name over and over, Ava kicked Natsuhi, and kicked her, and then she started grabbing whatever her eyes fell upon and throwing it. Natsuhi was hit with a steaming teacup and a can of black tea whose tea leaves fell out all over her. She was kicked, her hair pulled and dragged up, her cheeks slapped so many times that it started to swell. Yeah, you never get in between two women fighting. Really, any fight in general, but yeah, it's dangerous whenever women fight. They have tactics that men, like, we don't have the capabilities of, just straight up. No one tried to stop it. It wasn't because they were worried about Ava kicking them too. It was because they thought it an appropriate act of retribution for a person who had lost her beloved son and husband. A proper retribution. A proper truth. Everyone in the parlor accepted that Natsuhi was the culprit. They accepted the truth Erika claimed. So it became a proper truth, and Natsuhi was designated as the proper culprit. She had already lost the husband and daughter who might have protected her, and even Kinzo, who should have given her a final bit of strength, had already vanished like a bubble in the ocean of illusions. No longer would anyone protect her. No longer would anyone believe her, so she was now the true culprit. Ava's shoulders heaved with her heavy breathing. Apparently, her anger still hadn't abated. Erika patted her shoulder and made Ava take a step back. Of course, this wasn't to protect Natsuhi from the violence. It was to further humiliate Natsuhi, now that she had been branded as the culprit.
夏日さん、私は3つの謎の2つを解きました。フーダニット、ハウダニット、そして最後の謎。ホワイダニットは犯人が自ら告白しなくてはならないと決まっています。どうかミステリーのルールに従い告白を。
The why done it refers to the motive.
これが三流ミステリーなら、そろそろ夏日さんが高笑いを始めて罪を認め、悲しい過去話を始めるタイミングなのですが、まさかそれまで私がしなくてはなりませんか？
私は犯人じゃありません。誰か信じて。私は何者かに夫を人質に取られ、脅迫されて、罠に。
Natsuhi, with her hair a mess and her face red and tear-streaked, protested to everyone, but no one met her gaze, because it has already been resolved that Natsuhi was the culprit. Because Lambda Delta had acknowledged that the culprit of the tale was Natsuhi and had woven it that way. None of the pieces would pay any heed to Natsuhi's, to the culprit's words.
夏日は犯人ではない。我こそは黄金の魔女そなたらが夜の闇に怯えた年頃よりはるかに前から君臨する。なぜわらわの罪とせぬか。なぜ夏日を疑うのか。わらわを認めよ。すべてはわらわの犯行ぞ。人間が犯人ということなど断じてあってはならぬわ。
The illusion of the witch had already been crushed, and Beato's voice didn't reach anyone. The verdict had already been made. Everything had been decided.
聞こえてないわよ。あんたは幻。ただの幻想。お帰りなさい。ただの肖像画に。
Ouch.
金像の幻想を親族が共有することによって生まれた儚い幻の魔女。それがこの世界の選んだ真実なのよ。さあ、大ラムダデルタ教。この魔女を語るおこがましき愚かな幻想を今こそ葬り去りたまえ。
さようならベアトリーチェ。あなたを魔女にしたのは私のお友達になれるか、私の退屈を紛らわしてくれるか、そのどちらかを期待したものよ。そしてあなたは期待に応えてくれたわ。後者のね。
わらわは魔女であるわ。ラムダデルタ教に認められずとも魔女であるわ。
私が後見人にならなかったらそれを信じることもできなかったくせに。さあ、あなたはこれでゲームオーバーよ。あなたを葬る方法はあなたのゲーム版のルールに従ってあげる。あなたのゲームでは敗者はどうなるんだっけ。
すでにベアトが 過去のゲームで一度はっきりとそれを見せてくれてるわ。生きた肉の塊にしてヤギの晩餐会に放り込んで食い散らかされるのよ。ふさわしい最後だわ、ベアトリーチェ。高慢ちきなあんたの断末魔が聞きたくてはるばるこんなところまでやってきたのだから。
Oh, hello, goats. All three of you. One by one, a massive number of goat attendants slipped out from the shadows of the pillars and began to fill the cathedral. The goats paid no attention to Natsuhi, who was seated in the center, but the crowd completely enveloped her. From Beato's point of view up on the balcony, it probably looked like a huge boiling pot of goats.
そうであるな。もとよりそういう契約であったな。
そうよ。あなたが私を楽しませることができなくなったら、その身をもって私の退屈を慰めるのが私たちの契約。さあ、その女から魔女の座を奪い、ヤギの釜へ放り込みなさい。
Suddenly there were goats standing right behind Beato. They lifted her up roughly.
良い悲鳴を聞かせてね。あんたはこの日のために寝かせてきたワインね。
ならばそれを聞かせぬのがわらわの最後の一子であるわ。
やった、言わせたそれを捨て台詞にしてくれる子が聞かせてくれる悲鳴が最上級なのよ。落ちろ、ベアトリーチェ。
The goats carrying Beato no longer viewed her as their master. After holding her above the pot of clambering goats, which were snorting heavily in anticipation, they threw Beato's slender body into the air. All at once, the squirming goats faced the heavens and raised their arms. It was almost as though they would be able to forget their pain for just a short while by devouring her flesh. As she flew through the air, Beato tried to smile boldly, but it was so stiff that it seemed even more pathetic, much to Bernkastel's amusement. When Beato fell into the pot, the goats caught her. Of course, they didn't do it gently. The arms of countless goats pulled at her flesh to keep it for themselves. They tried to tear her to bits. It didn't have to be flesh. Hair, fingernails, shoes, even bits of her dress worked just fine. I guess what comes around goes around here. The mouths of those goats were the gateway into hell. However, Beato was too big to enter into that gateway, so they had to chew and tear her into bits small enough to fit into it. Beato let out a bold laugh. She laughed from inside the pot of goats. However, her expression was very different from the one that she had wanted. It was an expression not of a witch, but of a single human yelling in her death throes. Ayo? Then, the sea of goats parted. Delanor leapt forward, slicing all the goats in her path with a single flash of her longsword. It was a clean slice, like cutting through butter. The goats were surprised by Delanor's sudden appearance and stepped back. In the center, Beatrice cowered in tatters, sobbing.
何の真似？異端審問官ドラノール。恐れながら申し上げます。この判決に意義のある者がおります。そやつの名は
Ushiromiya Battler. There he is. There he is. All right. All right, gamers. It is time to flip around 360 style, doing whatever Fortnite dance you want on that chessboard. Battler is going to step to the plate to defend Beatrice in a really weird, course of events here. And we'll go through all that in the next video because I'm out of time. Damn, what a chapter this has been. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could not have been Natsuhi, you know, it couldn't have been that easy was sort of like my reasoning behind her not being the culprit. But I do believe that maybe quite a bit of what we were shown was maybe the truth. But it does beg the question as to what really went down, but do we really need to know everything? If we, you know, take a step back and consider a lot of the things that we were told, not everything needs to be figured out. If we can hold on to something really good, we don't have to explain every part of it. As long as the other side can't really fight it back, then maybe we're okay. As long as there's something that can hold Natsuhi afloat, to hold Kraus up there as well, and therefore allow for Beatrice to still be capable of the one that committed the murders. Meaning that no one could have committed the murders, or we can't find a solution for it, so therefore it does fall back on Beatrice, is the goal here, at least for her. For the game to continue, for the game to be back in the hands of Battler and Beatrice. We'll see how it goes in the next one. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, all that fancy jazz, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.